Welcome. Good evening,
Welcome.
everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the weekly Thursday Wisdom in Action sessions. Is there anybody here in person or on Zoom for the first time? Extra welcome to both of you. And how about those on Zoom? Anybody here for the first time?
Yeah, I am Shashi Sharma. I am here for the first time.
Welcome.
Very welcome. Thank you all for joining. So my name is Anjali, and I have been studying here meditation with the Brahma Kumaris for the last 8 years. And we are really here today just to share what we have learned here, and very happy that we can do that with all of you.
Yeah, welcome very much to everybody who's here. And my name is Satyen Shah, and I've been studying this knowledge probably for the last 7 or 8 years as well. So welcome to all of you.
So how today's session, I just want to orient you as to how it's going to be today. So firstly, we are here as friends, as family, as lifelong students, and really invite you to keep an open heart, open mind, because you just don't know what might touch you. And, depending on where you are in your journey. And, I think each of us has a very unique story, a very unique journey. And it's kind of personally designed for each of us in terms of our growth. And so today we're going to do a little bit of storytelling. We're actually going to hear Satyen's journey. I call his journey Wall Street to wellness and wholeness. So we'll see how that ties into today's theme of beauty and the real beast. So we'll be hearing his story and extracting, where we can, different jewels of spiritual wisdom where we can apply to our life. So listen with a lot of alertness. So beauty and the real beast. How many of you were like, what does that mean? Obviously, something kind of drew you to that title, right? Yeah. So when you hear the word beauty, what feelings come into your mind? What images come into your mind?
Anything.
Flowers. What else? Beauty. Say that again. Face. So beautiful faces. So physical appearance. What else? Nature.
Nature of
So
a person.
nature and nature of a person.
Good.
Anything else? Think about, travel down memory lane in your own life. We've all had different relationships, experiences. What touches you when you hear the word beauty? Nature, music, to connect with your deeper self. Beautiful.
Good.
How about anybody on Zoom?
Nature, pleasing to the eye.
Nature pleasing to the eyes. Satyen, what feelings come to your mind when you think of beauty?
Well, I guess, things like peace and tranquility. I think along the lines of nature. I think some have mentioned, but maybe joy. That could be another idea.
Yeah. And how about when you think of the word beast? Everybody's smiling here.
What does that mean to everybody?
Now we got everybody thinking. What feelings, images come to mind? Think from your own life. Anger.
Angry, yeah.
Anger, ugly.
Ugly, yeah.
What else?
Beast.
Heavy, like inner heaviness. Is that
Heavy? Oh, you said
yeah, yeah. Dirty.
Dirty.
Yeah. Sorrow.
Okay, good.
Stubbornness. Yeah. Sounds like you all are more familiar with the beast than the beauty.
Bossy, right? Like that beast feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, bossy.
Everybody knows that. Yeah.
Okay, so we have experienced both, but it sounds like we're more familiar right now with the beast aspect. So let's maybe now turn to Satyan's story. And of course, we'll kind of pause in between and see what we can pull from his story and what we can apply to ourselves.
And just, feel free to interject. This is kind of like a dialogue, so it's not like a lecture. We wanted to keep it very free and flowing.
Yes,
So
we are here
feel
as
free. Yeah.
family friends.
Yeah, exactly.
So Satyan.
Yes, ma'am.
As I said, I like to call your journey Wall Street to wellness and wholeness, right? So I know many years ago, you were a budding college graduate.
Many years ago.
Very excited to start working and accomplish things. And you entered the world of Wall Street. Now, for me, someone who doesn't work on Wall Street, it's hard for me to associate beauty with anything on Wall Street, but maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
So I want you to take us all there. What is the energy like on Wall Street? Like, make us feel like we're there.
It's a tough one. And how many just so that I get a sense, are people familiar with Wall Street terminology, or are you familiar with finance? And I just want to know. So when I use, no? Okay. We'll use very layman's term. Okay. So based on what you said, yes, I was very excited coming out of college. I was very interested in the areas of investing and, putting things to work and going after and finding things at a discount versus, cheap, versus where nobody else could understand things and I understood, and I wanted to be there first. And I had those, qualities. So I wanted to go into that world, right? And somehow, somewhere, I was able to land a job at Goldman Sachs, a big investment firm. I'm sure you may have heard of it. And, the energy is kind of like what you normally would associate with it, even if you are not part of it, right? But I was very excited. And the energy that came about when I was there was one of high energy, was one of deep people who are driven, people who have dreams of their own, are very get things done, go. But at the same time, very intellectually smart and much smarter than me. And so I felt I was surrounded by people who were smarter than me, but there was also a lot of pressure to get things done and deadlines and a lot of high stakes of money, millions of dollars being put to work, where if you make a mistake, your head's on the chopping block, right? And so it's like either you make it or you don't, right? And that type of feeling. But at the same time, it was very energizing because every day is a different day in the market, right? Something could be happening like now in the Middle East, or something could be going on with interest rates, or there could be a housing crunch, or something is going on with commodity prices. And so it's like, you're always problem solving, you're always thinking about different interesting themes. And so it was that type of, energy. So if you like that, you could survive and you could thrive, but at the same time, there's a lot of pressure.
So from what you just said, what I'm visualizing is like this long, huge hall with tons of desks, and all of you are kind of sitting there, lots of noise, lots of talking, lots of on your computer, lots of change, right? Unpredictability, but at the same time, very kind of intellectually stimulating and energizing.
Yeah.
So you all feel like you're there, that
Sort
kind of environment.
Yeah.
So sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what kept you there? Because it seems like, wow, how do you keep up with that?
Yeah, it was, and just like any other industry, right? Wall Street has its different components. There are people in the legal staff, but then marketing and sales. And I was in a world where I somehow got promoted into this area where I was actually responsible for putting together a portfolio for our high level clients, who are institutions who are giving us money to invest. And I'm part of a team that has to allocate that money to different places and create a fund and generate a return with a certain level of risk, right? And that was part of my job. So there's a lot of pressure, but I loved it because I all of a sudden, I got to I was flying around the world in business class, and I was staying at amazing places, and I got to do due diligence and got to meet some of the smartest people in the world, managing money in Asia, in Europe, in South America, and all over the United States. And so you can imagine the types of people you're coming across, and they're respecting you because you have all the money that they want, right? And so you get a lot of respect. People are people that I normally would never talk to me on the street were really, really want to talk to me, right? And so you feel that sense of importance. At the same time, you have millions of dollars that you have power over, that you have people's money, and you have to do something productive with it. And so you feel this great sense of responsibility, and you feel wow, people have entrusted me with this and I need to do a good job. So you feel that sense of responsibility. You feel, once I got promoted to become a vice president in our group, you get another level of respect, and then the salary, and then the bonus starts coming in. And so it's one thing builds on another, and you start to feel like you're on this high, and you're still meeting great people. You're still, some of it is very, I don't know how it was still very exciting. There was pressure, but I was feeling good because I was doing good at what I was doing. And so all of these levers, my job title, my status, my salary, my bonus, the people I was meeting, everything was kind of rising at the same time. So I almost was in a little bit of a bubble, if you could call it.
Interesting. Now, from what we just heard him share about his story, anything you could pick up? Anything that struck you? Yes, you have a question.
My feeling is when you are at that level, you're constantly under pressure, and you have to do something to your mind to keep it at a level that you can perform for succeeding in what you're planning to do. But if you're too much under pressure, your mind will not be able to support your mission. And so I feel when you are doing well and you are in positions where you can do high-level pressured work, you have to take care of your mind.
Sure. Yeah. No, we also had a question from our live audience here about, did I have a team? And yes, I did have a good team, and I had a really good mentor at the same time. who I left with from Goldman to subsequent other companies. So I left with them. And so, yes, that was another additional thing that, wow, I always had the support, no matter where I was, because this person was with me for about 5 to 6 years. So that was another thing I was, that kept me happy. Yeah.
Anything else from all of you or those on Zoom?
Yes, I would like to say something.
Yes.
It's very glorifying. I mean, you were at your peak kind of thing at very young age. So a lot of ego boosting during that period and ambitions. Go-getter. Let me get this contract. Let me fly here. I mean, it is a totally, I would say, very ego-centric kind of thing. And I'm sure we all have gone through this. There is a period where our ambitions are going. You cannot be in that position unless you are that ambitious about wanting to be rich, wanting to be productive, wanting to kind of do something. So,
Right.
Yeah, there are definitely elements of that we're starting to develop for sure.
And when we use the word ego, I know when we often hear that word, it makes us think of arrogance, right? But I think what Varsha is referring to is this false sense of self, right? When I start identifying myself with what I do and what I have. And of course, we'll build on that soon. Yeah. But I think that's what maybe you were referring to. Yeah. There was one thing, Satyen, that you said that struck me. And yes, everything you've all said, I think we feel it was a high pressure job, but you were very ambitious. But one thing you said was, I started to feel good about myself because people were respecting you. You were doing well in your job.
Yeah.
And you said that.
I did.
So that's interesting, right? How do you feel about that? Attention.
Yeah, right.
And right.
Yeah.
Acceptance from other people, right? So it almost sounded like your sense of self was kind of subtly, invisible threads were dependent on things outside, or at least you probably weren't aware of it at the time, right?
Correct.
So you were doing wonderful. You were happy with what you did. It was exhilarating.
And this was a good 8 years, 2000 to 2007, 2000. Yeah.
And then 2008 happened. Are you all familiar with what happened in 2008?
I can just briefly describe it.
Yes. Tell us what happened.
Financial crisis.
Yeah.
But I want you to take us like we're experiencing it with you.
Yeah. I just come back from India on a trip. I was there, I think, in the summer on a work-related trip, and then seeing some relatives out there, and then doing, continuing to do my work, and things were going relatively okay. Things were starting to teeter a little bit as I came back home, and I saw what was going on in the mortgage world, and these subprime mortgages. Basically, the whole point was mortgages were given to people that shouldn't have had them. And the bottom line is, as soon as they started having to pay, they couldn't anymore. And it created a big crunch in the banking industry. And every day I used to go into work, and I would sense that people were getting a little bit more tense, a little bit more edgy. It wasn't quite the same level of money that was coming into the firm for us to then do work to invest it. It was actually the reverse starting to happen as people get scared. people didn't want their money out there. So people started what's called redeeming. They started to take the money out of our firm. And as money comes out, what happens? Fees go down. As fees go down and costs remain the same, things are going to have to happen, right? And so I was starting to feel that. Every day you walk into work, you hear something is going on with this bank. Oh, Bear Stearns is about to be liquidated, and so everybody's getting fired. Okay, so I'm like, that's not good. A week later, I'm hearing something from Lehman Brothers, another bank that's going down under, and another bank called Barclays is about to buy it up. Another bank is starting to go down, and every day, little by little, we started feeling that the whole financial industry is about to like collapse, and the government is now working on a huge package to bail out the banks. At the same time, our firm is shrinking. I was at a company called Weston at that time. It was a small like boutique in Connecticut, and people are like just taking their money out in droves. And I'm starting to feel that, and people are having management discussions, and secret meetings are going on, and we don't know what's going on. We're sort of out of the loop. And now like September 15th happens, 2008. Why is that relevant? I'm called into a conference room with two other people. I walk in. The CFO of the firm is sitting like right where you are. My manager is sitting right there, and one other person is right there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I don't know what this is about exactly, but we've had meetings before and where I've had to go myself. And the first sentence is, I'm sorry, but unfortunately, we will have to terminate your employment. And right at that moment, he said a bunch of things after that. Okay, here's your severance, and you got 3 months of pay. But I couldn't really pay attention to any of that at that moment, because right there at that moment, like all these things flashed in front of my eyes. Like I just lost the job that I've been doing for so long. I've lost my status. I was already counting on bonus money coming in. Forget that now. I won't have a salary after a few weeks. I don't know if I'm going to be able to live in the apartment that I have in East Side of Manhattan anymore. I'm in a new relationship. How's that going to look? Right? All these things are going on in my head. I'm not good anymore. I'm not worth what I was worth. The money that I personally invested for myself is going down the tubes because the market's down. I'm not going to have a salary. And so I was kind of lost, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And yeah, they did pay me for another few months, but for those next 4 to 6, 8 months, I really was kind of down on the dumps and like really kind of lost my sense of who I was and my value. And so that's kind of where I felt.
Wow. Have you all experienced something like this? Maybe not to that magnitude, or maybe you have. Yeah.
So you felt the ancillary effects. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is, in 1 second, your whole world shifted.
Okay.
Not just externally, but internally.
Yeah.
Like how you saw yourself, your
Mhm.
value,
Yeah.
your sense of happiness. In 1 second, everything
Changed.
exactly. Now we're kind of shifting your journey, right?
Yeah.
To wellness and wholeness. Because I know for you, after everything kind of crashed down in front of you, it kind of sparked something within to find yourself. So tell us a little bit about how did you get through that time?
Yeah, I got to think back now. But yeah, it was tough for those next 6 to 7 months. Right? I still remember, like President Obama had just come into office. This whole financial sector was being dealt with, and so I was still uncertain as to where I was going to land, because this is all I've done my whole life, right, for the last 7 or 8 years. And then to go back into that industry knowing that it's contracting, it was not easy. So there was that, and then there was also the general bigger realization that was happening as that maybe, just maybe, that the stuff that I was latching onto for all these years for my happiness and value might not be the right place to go, and it's okay to have those things, but it's maybe not the place I need to create my foundation anymore. And so I was having these thoughts like, okay, do I really want to go back? Well, I can't really go back, but even if I do go back, this isn't really the things that I value anymore. So I had to really do a lot of soul searching. And yes, I ended up after 2009, 2010, going back to a bank for a few years, but I knew deep inside that I have to make a transition out of here. At the same time, I was going on a more of a spiritual journey. And that's kind of what led me into this world, into this meditation center and this body of knowledge. And long story short, I think what it came down to was a basic fact that I can either live my life in this model, the first model, which is I am nothing, I am born, and I become something based on everything that I accumulate in this world, right? My job, my college degree, my graduate degree, where I went to school, my friends, my connections, all of that stuff. Because that's what I grew up with. I think that's what everybody grows up with, what your parents think. All my parents are like doctors and PhDs. So that was ingrained into me. But from the beginning, you have to go to graduate school, then you can be successful, then you'll be good. You have to go to a certain school. You have to do these types of activities. You have to live in a certain neighborhood. Like all of this stuff is what we grew up with. And all this stuff was actually creating these false identities in me. And I was going after all of that stuff throughout my whole life. So that's one model. But the model I learned about over the last few years, and the model that I'm aspiring to get into and working on, is knowing that I am, like the meditation you were doing earlier, is that I am a complete and absolutely secure being of light. Absolutely immortal, eternal being that comes into this world, into a womb, and born into this world, goes through this one big experiment or an experience of life, and then leaves this world. But I'm still that absolute complete being at the end, right? And so what is all this stuff in the middle? It's just another extra experience. It's something extra that I can enjoy and have and find. But am I not using that as the basis of who I am? And is that an easy way to do? Is that an easy method? No. But is it a healthier method? Yes. And so that is what I'm focusing on now. And as a result, of course, my career has shifted, and now I've become like a health and wellness coach for people. And that was one of the reasons I left, because it was very difficult to maintain this type of mentality, the number 2 model, while I'm still in that world. And so I've completely shifted. And so that's been a whole other journey just to get into this new world. But at the same time, keep this framework of being this being of light, complete and absolutely secure, coming into this world, into this body, and just playing the game and then leaving the game.
Very beautiful. And I want to add a little twist in your story, because I think on this journey you've been on, I think that this other experience also really shifted you.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll tie this back into how this all connects to Beauty and the Beast, the topic of the evening. I know last year you lost your dad, and you saw him struggle through a serious illness.
Yeah.
How did your journey help you? Because I saw you personally give so many family members so much strength. And from your heart, there was no sorrow. There was celebration of who he was. So can you share that with us? Because I think that's an important part of your story.
Yeah. Just for those of you that don't know, I know most of you wouldn't. So my father was dealing with Parkinson's disease for, I would say, since 2004. So, good, 16, 17, 18 years almost. And before going on this spiritual journey, he was a very, very important person in my life. As we all have that one person, right? That always is like looking after you, continually making you want to grow and develop in different places. Made me like, I'm also a musician on the side, so made me like practice, made me play tennis, made me do this, and just that person that you always want to go to ask questions, because he's always a man of wisdom and all those things. And then once the Parkinson's started and progressing, and I started to become, obviously as a child, you start to remember the old times, and you don't want to accept the new times and the new way of doing things. And, you can't speak as much, you can't move as much, you can't do things, and you get frustrated. But as I was going on this spiritual journey at the same time, after I'd lost my job and all that, I started to see him in that same light, even as I went to visit him in Florida every few months, that this is a being of light. It is a child of the Supreme, and that this being, I have to constantly remember that that's who it is. It's a healthy being. Yes, the body is suffering, but the soul is still there in its innate beauty. And if I can keep remembering that, that's the best way I can help the soul, And so, in those last years, in the last year, he would suffer tremendously. He went through dementia. So just visualize that. You're your parents who can't really recognize you, who can't really talk to you, uttering weird things. But this man was a brilliant PhD scientist. And so trying to not remember the past, but just being there with that soul in that moment, and knowing that there's going to be a journey after this experience, and knowing that there's what we call like karma that has to be paid, right? That has to be settled. And as that, what can I do to help settle it in the best way? Am I going to cry? Am I going to feel sorrow? Or can I see him from a much bigger perspective? And I had to really train myself to do that, because your baseline is to become very sorrowful and start crying, like, how can this happen? And no, because everybody else is doing that. So how do I help that situation? And so that was the result of, like, even at his funeral, and not even before the funeral, we went to see the body, in the crematorium, in the funeral home. And I didn't know how I was going to feel. So I didn't see him because he died in Florida and I was here. I went there, and the guy who heads up the funeral parlor was like, yeah, your father's in this room. You please go and you can visit him. And you see the body, I didn't know how I was going to feel. And there was some emotions that started to come up when I saw the body. But then I slowly shifted. I quickly shifted in that, wow, that soul is gone and is happy and is free from this body finally after so many years. And like just giving it those vibrations constantly, like full of peace, full of joy now, freely moving, absolutely free of this old machine that couldn't be used anymore. And yeah, I felt the body was stiff, and I'm like, okay, he's not there. Like, that's not him anymore, he's gone. And so that was the attitude that I wanted to bring to the funeral when I saw them, and try to, create that atmosphere for everybody. So that was it.
Thank you for sharing that. In your whole story, because of what you went through, the sort of rejections from Wall Street, it really redirected you to your true self, right? So rejections in our journey of life are actually redirections to help bring us closer to our true self. And I want to take all the kind of spiritual jewels that you shared and bring it back to our main topic of beauty and the real beast. So to keep it very simple, within each of us, we have these two sides, beauty and the beast. Agreed? Yeah. And depending on which side is dominant inside, in our mind, in our feelings, in our thoughts, that's how we kind of experience life, and that's how we express ourselves, and that's how we deal with different situations that come our way. Beauty, when we are awake to that beauty, we are completely aware of who we truly are, as Satyen was saying. We are spiritual beings, non-physical beings of light, beings of peace, absolutely always beautiful, made of peace, made of love, made of joy. That's who we always were, always are, and always will be. And when we're aware of that, and not just knowing, because I think all of us who are sitting here have heard this, right? That we are spiritual beings here having a human experience, playing out all of our different roles, but really experiencing that in our daily life. And of course, that requires practice and attention. But when we're awake to that I am already everything that I'm looking for outside. I am already valuable. I am already worthy of respect. I am a being of goodness and wholeness, right? So when we're awake to that, when we're in touch with that, there is a deep feeling of inner security and fullness and wholeness inside. And what happens when we're experiencing that? The best comes out. Our highest potential naturally gets expressed. That's the beauty. Do you realize how beautiful each of you are? Really, truly? You are. Because of who you truly are, right? But we come into this life experience and we start basing our sense of self, our sense of value, just like Satyen, not just Satyen, all of us have experienced this, our sense of happiness based on everything outside. Yes, it's okay to, not okay, we should have these experiences. We should play our roles fully and from our heart. But what happens when you base your sense of identity on things outside that are temporary? and that can change in a second,
Mm.
right?
Without your permission.
Without
Mm.
any signal, that without your permission.
Yeah.
Right? And so when that becomes our sense of self on things outside, what I do, what I have, how other people treat me, how I look, because innately we know that those things are temporary, changing. They have a beginning, they have an end. There is that feeling of insecurity inside, an emptiness inside. And so we start projecting our needs. I need peace, I need love, I need happiness on everything outside. And that actually gives rise to our beast side. And that can present, as you all were sharing in the beginning, as anger, bossiness, neediness, jealousy, competition, right? Because like you were sharing in your story, yes, you can, for example, get the best new car, whatever, right? Like that was your goal and you got this great new car. And you can be happy temporarily, but in the back of your mind, there's always this subtle feeling like, oh, I hope nobody scratches it, right? Like you're not fully in the moment and enjoying it, but there's this subtle anxiety about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, actually, it happened to a friend of mine who works in the Wall Street world, right? And he bought like I don't know, some new Mercedes or something, and he was like so happy. He's like, unbelievably, like, you gotta drive this. This is unbelievable. And then, like, a month later, you talk to him and he's like, he's not doing so. I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh man, like both my neighbors bought Teslas. And I'm like, okay, so but you still enjoy driving a Mercedes? Like, yeah, but it's not the same. And then like 2 weeks later, I think I bumped into him again, and now he's like depressed. I'm like, what happened? Like, someone scratched my Mercedes on top of this. And I'm like, you still have a Mercedes? Like, see how quickly that can drop. It's unbelievable. And just to add to this mechanism that you were talking about, is like when we attach ourselves, and I've lived through this, wrong identification, identifying with my job, like what we just discussed, with my salary, with my bonus, and I'm dependent on these things. Each one of these little wrong identifications has their own desires, right? Like once I'm in the job, I'm in that mode of like, okay, I want to get more of this. I want to get more responsibility. Once I'm looking at my bank account, like, oh, I need more of this. I need to increase this. So it's like, each one of those wrong identities creates desires. Each one of those desires, now, if I don't think I'm going to meet or I'm going to fulfill that desire, what happens? Oh, I get anxious. Oh, I get worried. I'm a little bit uneasy. But then it's like, what if one of my desires actually gets obstructed and doesn't happen? I'm angry. I'm vengeful. And these are feelings I had in 2008 and 2000. Why did it happen to me? Why didn't it happen to the other guy? What's wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, I shouldn't deserve this. Like, all this stuff was happening. And then you start blaming yourself. And that's when the depression, the lack of self-esteem, all that stuff starts to happen. It's like, and it all stems from that top line of identifying with the wrong thing. And that leads to all of these little critters down here. And so imagine if we have a method to sort of melt those away by basically feeding who you truly are through meditation and through self-awareness and through all this knowledge. If you keep feeding that, then you can keep feeding that inner qualities that have been sort of masked for so long, but they're your innate qualities. They're who you really are. But they just have to be like sort of uncovered, and it's sort of like, we use this analogy of like, having pure gold, right? Over time, those bonds of gold start to like become weak and starts mixing with silver, a little bit lesser quality metal, right? And then over time, again, that silver then metals, then meshes with and combines with copper, right? And then that whole amalgamation starts to weaken, and then there's iron and it starts to rust. And that's what's going on with us. And so how do you get back to that pure gold? Is that you need a method to melt away the impurities slowly. Get rid of the iron first, increase the heat. Again, get rid of the copper. Then again, you increase, you really intensify. Then you get rid of the silver. And you left with that pure gold. Like each one of you has that gold. Each and every one of you has it. And, we all have it. But the difference between us is that we actually are actively now trying to melt away the impurities. Doesn't mean they don't come back. Doesn't mean when I talk to a colleague and he's like, oh, I'm having a great time. And, the work is great. And, oh, we're doing all these great things. Like part of my mind goes back there, right? Because I'm not fully, there yet. So it's like, it's a constant work in motion. You constantly have to come back. So.
And so really the real beauty is inside.
Right.
It's in who you truly are already. And the real beast is outside? No, inside. The real beast is not someone out there.
No.
It's our inner kind of limited conditionings of who we think we are. Right? So and really, like Satyen was saying, the whole journey, this whole kind of spiritual journey is really about shifting our sense of self, right? And it takes practice, it takes attention, it takes being very gentle with yourself because we're so wired to think that way. But the change doesn't mean you have to fight with the beast. Like when we kind of start observing those tendencies inside, we don't have to fight with that. Yes, you're aware, okay, maybe I've been seeing myself the wrong way. Maybe I've been looking for my peace and my love in the wrong places. But just feed the beauty that you already are, and that will naturally grow. And one other thing I want to mention before we kind of open it up to all of you and then our closing meditation. So one is our sense of self, right? But the other is when the beauty within us is awake, how does it see challenges of life, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're on a kind of meditation journey, spiritual journey, challenges are definitely going to come. But how does the beauty within, the true self that is whole, perfect, complete, how does it see challenges? It sees them as opportunities for growth, right? Versus like everybody and everything is coming to teach me something. Everybody is my teacher. That perspective naturally awakens. But when we are operating from our beast side, our lower nature, our wrong, limited sense of who I am, how does it see problems? How does it see challenges? Everything is a problem. Even if something is not a problem, it sees it as a problem, right? So just kind of like really experimenting with and growing the beauty within. So before we do our closing meditation, I don't know if any of you here or any on Zoom would like to share any thoughts, inspirations, questions.
Yes, I do have a question.
We have somebody here.
Sorry,
and
that's
then
okay.
we'll get to your question also.
Thank you.
You can use the mic.
I just have like a small comment,
Yeah.
Satyenji, that what can be more difficult situation than seeing your father, who you respected so much, in a funeral home? even you could turn that situation into something positive, right?
Right,
You
right.
said that I was giving positive vibration around, right? Just inspiring that soul to go to the
Right.
next journey.
Right.
Even if we can turn that situation into something positive, then
Yeah.
like it
Exactly.
shows that it should permeate our other aspects of life.
Exactly.
So that was really inspiring.
Good.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad. Yeah. Good. Somebody on Zoom had a question?
Yes, I understand all these things, the beast and beauty, and I also do meditation and listen and chant. But the thing is, like when the beast comes, how do you apply the beauty? Because I mean, I'm in a situation, almost on a retirement time, but my plan was to work a little longer. And somehow I just kind of couldn't handle the culture and I just kind of quit retire. So it has been almost like 8, 9 months. But in the morning, I kept thinking, I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I do it? After that, the whole day I'm okay after do meditation and everything. But when the beast comes, is applying the say at that time, sometimes it becomes a little bit challenging.
Oh, basic. I think, Darshana, you were saying that, when these beast qualities start to come and thoughts around the beast, how do you quickly apply? How do you become beautiful in that perspective?
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
I think that the truth is, it's what do you do when the beast is not there, right? It's like any Olympic athlete doesn't just show up at the Olympics
Right.
without having practiced. Because at the Olympics, you meet the best of the best, right? So the athlete has practiced for weeks and months and years so that when it's ready to face the toughest opponent, it's ready. And so even with our journey, right, when everything is going fine and there's no situations, because we do have those periods of time also, right? Challenges are not happening all the time. Is building that inner beauty within, using your thoughts, developing those feelings so that you kind of gain this inner reserve so that when that beast does pop up, you've kind of built up reserve so that you can, at the very least, be kind of still when that's happening and not let it consume you. Because you're absolutely right. When those beast thoughts and feelings come, it's very hard to quiet them down.
Yeah.
So it's really about what you're doing beforehand.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I mean, just a practical example from my perspective. Quick story. I know you gotta go, but because I was practicing this now for a number of years, just this meditation and going deep into that world of the soul and, burning off all this other stuff that I was carrying for so long, I've, had to deal with certain, like the father incident, I had to deal with some big incidences, but even at work, things that would have bothered me years ago didn't really affect me anymore. I had this one incident where I had to do a presentation and, we had to present it to this big company. And I left some numbers out because our compliance department didn't approve. So I left it out, but it would have made us look really good. After the meeting, everything went fine, but the CEO of the whole division came in. He was at the meeting. He took the presentation that I did, ripped it in half in front of my face and threw it against the wall and said, "What is your problem?" in front of everybody. And somehow I was okay. I was like, all right, I have to really, it was everything that I had worked on beforehand that had come into motion right at that moment to be like, okay, this is a game. It's going to pass. Not a big deal. It wasn't my fault. I have the justification. So I knew all those things were coming. And later on, he apologized for doing that because he just, in the moment that, we didn't look at our greatest, we didn't show our best foot forward, but it was for reasons that I couldn't do because I was not allowed to put those numbers in for whatever reason. So the point is, to Darshana's, what she was asking is that because you are working on this muscle, exercising it every day for years, when that situation comes, it automatically sort of goes into play. But other than that, it's gonna, you're gonna have to constantly deal with it based on what level you're at. You can't bench press 300 pounds if you've only worked out for a week, right? Like, so you got to work at it. So that's all I would say.
Yes. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
I have a question, sister. I am very positive and productive nowadays. I feel happy, but I have only one issue. I'm not able to deal with anxiety. So how to deal with that in our day-to-day life?
That is a big question.
Yeah, I don't know if you-
I think what we have been sharing, right, with the practice of meditation, bringing ourselves back to the root. And the root and the seed is, who am I truly? And when we kind of work at that, those feelings of anxiety start to kind of dissolve, but it requires a constant practice. I know I wasn't able to answer your question fully.
No,
Yeah.
maybe I think it will need more time for
Yeah.
me to settle down.
Being
I
very,
think probably time will do it for me.
very patient with yourself, gentle
Yes.
with yourself,
Yeah.
and it
Yes.
will happen because you
does.
already are a peaceful being. So it's just about feeding that.
Right.
Yes.
It's like
Thank you so much.
all of these things that we're talking about, like everybody in our world wants a quick fix. Oh, I'll just take a pill and I'll be fine. Or I can just do this. I can just do this for 2 minutes. No, unfortunately, this takes time. Any great thing you want to achieve in life is going to take a little bit of time. But the point is, there's a solution. And if you just, give yourself that 10, 15 minutes every morning to start out and create this practice, just like me. I used to stay up till 11 o'clock at night, get up by like 6, 7, and rush to work, not have any time in the morning. Guess what I'm doing now? I sleep by 9, 9:30. I'm up by 4. Naturally. Did that happen overnight? No, it happened over years. But you wanna make it happen. You want that for yourself. And then because of that, your perspective changes, your eating habits change, everything changes. And that's for a much longer discussion. But the point is, like you said, these things take time.
So maybe we can have our closing meditation.
Oh, okay.
Before we do our closing meditation, I want to invite you all with a big, big heart for our Saturday workshop this coming Saturday, titled Building Self-Esteem. And we will be so happy to have you here in person, but you can also join on Zoom and you will be equally present. And the timing is 10 to 11:30
Eastern time.
Eastern time. Okay. So we can all be seated upright, alert but comfortable, with your feet resting on the ground. And we can start by taking a deep breath in and out. And just follow the natural rhythm of your breath. in and out. And consciously allow the body to relax. From your heart, you can say thank you to your body for all that it does. Just allow yourself to be in this moment. And yes, there may be sounds in the background, your body feeling certain things. But for right now, accept everything as it is. No thoughts about it, no judgment, no need to change anything in this moment. And allow your eyes to be still, silent. Your ears still silent. Your hands and feet still silent. And just for the next few moments, we go beyond our roles, responsibilities, beyond the pull of the past, beyond anything that happened to me. And I just rest in the truth of who I truly am. A spiritual being of light. A being of goodness. A being of beauty. Made of unbroken, unlimited, unending peace. A peace that is there no matter what is happening outside. Just savor this feeling of who I truly am. You were this. You are this. And you always will be this. Om Shanti.